On the day she finally chose happiness over heartbreak, her father's cruelty opened the door to the past. When her ex-husband walked in with twins, the truth shattered vows, pride, and every dream she thought was safe. If this story resonated with you, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as beautiful as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The morning sunlight spilled over Manhattan, casting its glow on the towering glass of the Conrad Hotel, where wedding guests were already beginning to gather. Inside the top-floor penthouse, a woman stood before a mirror, her reflection almost unrecognizable even to herself. Elena Whitford adjusted the diamond pin in her hair with trembling fingers. To the world, she was the woman who had clawed her way up to become CEO of Whitford Global, a company that her father had once told her she was too soft, too naive to ever run. Yet here she was, every inch of her dressed in strength and success. But beneath the veil and satin gown was the faintest flicker of doubt, a secret fear that no matter how much she built, her father's shadow would always stretch across her life. Her best friend, Camille, leaned against the vanity table, sipping champagne and eyeing her carefully. "Elena, you look like you're about to walk into a boardroom battle, not down an aisle," she teased, trying to break the tension. Elena forced a smile. "Maybe because for me, they're the same thing." Downstairs, in the gilded ballroom being transformed into a cathedral of white roses and crystal chandeliers, another figure moved with equal authority but darker intent. Richard Whitford, Elena's father, watched the staff scramble to meet his demands. His silver hair was slicked back, his navy suit immaculate, his presence commanding the room like a general on the eve of war. For Richard, control was oxygen. Without it, he suffocated. To the guests, he was the proud father of the bride. But inside, resentment gnawed at him. Elena had defied him, refused to marry the man he had once chosen, and instead taken control of the company he built. Today was supposed to be her day, but Richard would make sure it never belonged fully to her. Meanwhile, a few blocks away in a modest brownstone apartment in Brooklyn, another man stared at two small tuxedos laid neatly across a bed. Marcus Devereaux, Elena's ex-husband, tightened his tie in the mirror, his jaw tense. The twins, his children, tugged at his sleeves, asking questions he wasn't sure he was ready to answer. "Daddy, are we really going to a wedding?" 6-year-old Miles asked, his wide brown eyes innocent and curious. "Yes," Marcus said quietly, kneeling down to straighten Miles's bow tie. "A very important one." "And will Mommy be there?" whispered his daughter, Maya, clutching her little stuffed bear. Marcus swallowed hard. The truth weighed on him like iron. "Yes, sweetheart. Mommy will be there." It had been years since Marcus had seen Elena. Years since the fights, the accusations, the sleepless nights when pride had destroyed what love once built. But when Richard Whitford's invitation arrived, hand-delivered and sealed with his familiar coldness, Marcus knew this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about unfinished business, about truths that had been buried too long. Back at the hotel, Elena's fiancé, Daniel Rhodes, stood in the groom's suite adjusting his cufflinks. He was everything her father had wanted: wealthy, well-connected, polished. Yet Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes as his best man slapped him on the back. "You've won the lottery, man," the best man said. "Elena Whitford. Beautiful, powerful. You're set for life." Daniel only smirked, his gaze drifting to the city skyline. To him, this wedding wasn't just about love. It was about status, influence, and securing his own foothold in the Whitford empire. As the hour drew near, the three lives, Elena, Marcus, and Richard, moved steadily toward collision. None of the guests sipping champagne beneath the glittering chandeliers could predict the storm about to break. Because by nightfall, vows would be broken, secrets would be unleashed, and the world of Elena Whitford would shatter in ways no one could ever imagine. The ballroom of the Conrad Hotel shimmered under the glow of 1,000 crystals. White roses climbed along the arches, violins filled the air, and rows of polished chairs faced a long ivory aisle. Guests whispered with admiration at the sheer elegance, some snapping photos, others marveling at the Whitford wealth on display. Elena waited at the end of the hall, her arm hooked in her father's. Her smile was perfectly poised, but her chest tightened with every step. Richard's grip on her arm was firm, almost possessive, as though he was reminding her that even in this moment of independence, she belonged to him. "Keep your chin high," Richard murmured, his tone laced with pride and warning. "Remember, appearances are everything." Elena didn't answer. She focused on Daniel waiting at the altar, his jaw set, his polished smile masking something unreadable. For a fleeting moment, Elena felt her stomach twist, but she forced the doubt aside. This was her fresh start. The officiant cleared his throat as the murmurs died down. "We are gathered here today to join Elena Whitford and Daniel Rhodes in holy matrimony." The words echoed through the hall. Elena's heart pounded, her breath shallow beneath her lace veil. Just as the officiant was about to continue, the great oak doors at the back of the ballroom creaked open with a groan that silenced the room. Heads turned. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A tall man in a dark suit stepped into the aisle, his presence commanding the room as though he had been expected all along. Marcus Devereaux. But it wasn't just him. At his side, two children, dressed in miniature tuxedos and holding hands, peered shyly into the glittering hall. Their wide brown eyes darted around the crowd, innocent yet piercing. The boy clutched a tiny toy car, the girl a worn-out teddy bear. The violins faltered, the notes dying mid-song. Whispers rose in waves. Elena froze, her lips parting in disbelief. The world tilted, the ground beneath her seemed to vanish. She blinked once, twice, hoping it was a hallucination brought on by nerves. But no, Marcus was there. And the twins, his twins, stood beside him like living proof of a life she knew nothing about. Daniel's face hardened instantly, his polished smile replaced with a scowl of pure disdain. He glanced at Elena, his eyes narrowing, demanding an explanation she couldn't give. The officiant stammered, Sir, this is a private ceremony." Marcus raised a hand. His voice was calm but resonant, echoing against the marble walls. "I apologize for the interruption. But there are truths that can no longer stay hidden." Gasps surged again. Guests leaned forward, whispers crackling through the air like fire catching dry grass. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. She wanted to scream, to demand what he meant, but her voice caught in her throat. She could only stare at the children. Children who looked so much like him. Children who, God help her, bore traces of her own features too. "Mommy," the girl's small voice carried across the silence. Maya stepped forward, her teddy bear dangling at her side. She looked straight at Elena, her innocent eyes glowing with recognition, as though her heart already knew. The crowd erupted. Elena staggered back, her veil slipping slightly. Her knees weakened, and Camille rushed forward to steady her. Daniel's hand clenched into a fist, fury etched in every line of his face. Richard, however, only smirked, his cruel satisfaction flashing for the briefest second before he masked it with feigned outrage. The world Elena had carefully constructed cracked apart in front of everyone she knew, her heart split open by a single word from a child who should not have known her name. And in that moment, as the guests gasped, as Daniel seethed, and as Marcus held his ground, Elena's wedding transformed into a battlefield where truth would cut deeper than any blade. The room buzzed with tension, the air thick with disbelief. Whispers ricocheted off the crystal chandeliers as Elena stood frozen, her mind racing faster than her heart. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some craning to see, others pulling out phones to capture the scene. Daniel's jaw tightened, his polished composure cracking. "Elena," he said, his voice low but trembling, "what is this? Explain. Now." Elena swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her hands clenched the folds of her gown as she glanced at the twins, then back at Marcus. Every nerve in her body screamed, but the words lodged in her throat. How could she explain what she had never known? Camille stepped protectively beside her. "Elena, you don't have to answer him right now," she whispered. Richard Whitford, ever the orchestrator, circled the room like a hawk. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of triumph and malice. "Well," he said smoothly, projecting innocence, "I suppose surprises are part of life. Perhaps this one will teach my daughter a lesson in humility." Elena's gaze snapped to him, fury igniting behind her eyes. "This is your doing, isn't it?" she demanded. Richard tilted his head, smiling faintly, the picture of feigned ignorance. "Now, Elena, you know I'm merely extend invitations. I cannot control who accepts. Marcus stepped forward, his posture protective as the twins clung to his sides. Elena, he said softly, his eyes locked on hers. They deserve to know you. I had to bring them. Her chest tightened. The air seemed to thicken around her as shock rippled through every guest. Gasps, murmurs, and a few shocked laughs punctuated the tension. The children looked to Elena for reassurance, their innocence colliding with the adult chaos around them. Daniel's hand gripped hers, but Elena barely noticed. His anger radiated like heat, an invisible fire threatening to consume everything. I thought we were building a future together, he said, voice breaking. But now, what am I supposed to think? That your past, that your life, is filled with secrets you never told me. Elena's eyes welled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She had spent years learning to control her emotions, to project power over vulnerability. But this was beyond anything she could have prepared for. The twins tugged at her gown, sensing the tension. Mommy, Miles asked quietly, his voice trembling. Are you mad at us? Elena's heart ached. She dropped to her knees, pulling them close. No, baby, she whispered, hugging them tightly. I'm just surprised. Surprise didn't begin to cover the whirlwind of betrayal, fear, and confusion crashing over her. The guests murmured about the scandal unfolding. Some whispered about the dramatic twist of fate. Others sympathized, but all eyes were glued to the scene. Richard's smirk deepened as he watched Daniel's face redden with frustration and jealousy. He had orchestrated a spectacle, and the chaos was exactly what he wanted, a subtle lesson in power, pride, and control. Elena's mind spun. She wanted to scream at her father, demand answers from Marcus, and yet comfort her children all at once. Every heartbeat felt like a hammer striking against her ribs. Camille grabbed her hand. Elena breathed. We'll figure this out. One step at a time. Elena nodded, but the room seemed to spin around her. The laughter of guests, the clinking of champagne glasses, the whispering conspiracies, they all faded into a background hum as she focused on the two little lives in her arms. In that instant, Elena realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Every plan she had made, every expectation for the perfect wedding, had been shattered. And somewhere beneath the fear, beneath the anger and confusion, a strange, flickering warmth emerged. These were her children. Real, tangible, and here. The shockwaves of this revelation rippled through every corner of her life, and Elena knew the true challenge was just beginning. Elena straightened abruptly, her fingers tightening around the folds of her gown. She could feel the twins' small hands against her, but every part of her screamed to step back, to push away the truth that had just stormed into her life. No, she said firmly, her voice shaking but resolute. This can't be real. I don't accept this. None of it. Marcus's jaw tightened. Elena, please, they are your children. They need you. She shook her head, stepping back. I don't even know you anymore, Marcus. I don't know who you are. And these children. I've never been part of their lives. You can't just what? Daniel snapped, cutting in, his voice sharp and laced with rage. Explain why my fiancé's past keeps dragging into my future? Are you saying this is normal? That we just accept it? Elena turned to him, eyes blazing. Daniel, you don't understand. This isn't about you. It's about me, about them, about everything I thought I knew. I can't. Richard stepped closer, his shadow falling across her. Finally, he said, his voice low and smooth. You see that life is unpredictable. Perhaps now you'll understand the consequences of pride and control. Elena felt anger ignite. This isn't about you, Father. Stop twisting everything. The twins looked up at her, confusion etched on their tiny faces. Maya clutched her teddy bear tighter. Mommy, please, don't be mad, she whispered. Elena blinked back tears. Her instincts screamed to reject this, to protect herself from another wound, but the innocence in their eyes made her chest ache. Denial warred with instinct, pride clashed with love, and the ballroom felt like it had collapsed around her. Daniel's frustration boiled over. Elena, we were supposed to start our life today. Now what? How do we continue after this? Elena's shoulders tensed. She wanted to yell, to run, to erase the entire moment from existence. I can't, she stammered. I need time. I can't. I don't know if I can forgive. I don't know if I can accept this. Marcus knelt down to the twins' level, placing a gentle hand on Miles's shoulder. They're scared too. They've waited their whole lives to know you. Don't push them away. The crowd was hushed, eyes darting between the adults. Some whispered about scandal, some about heartbreak, but no one could ignore the tension, the raw emotional storm that had erupted in a room meant for celebration. Elena's heart thundered. She wanted to resist, to erect walls, to reclaim control of the day she had planned for months. Yet the sight of the twins, and the weight of her own unspoken maternal instincts, began to chip away at the icy shield she had built around her heart. Her hands fell to her sides. The resistance wasn't over. It wouldn't be, but the first tremors of doubt in her denial hinted that change, however painful, was on the horizon. The reception hall had been transformed into a glittering sea of white and gold, but the celebration felt hollow. Elena sat stiffly at her assigned seat, her back rigid, her veil pushed slightly to the side as if to shield herself from the reality now sitting just feet away. Marcus had been seated across the table, the twins wedged between him and a nervous-looking uncle. Miles fidgeted with his napkin, Maya clinging to his arm, their small faces a mirror of confusion and cautious hope. Guests sipped champagne and exchanged polite smiles, but everyone felt the tension pulsing like a heartbeat through the room. Daniel's gaze burned into Elena intermittently, his jaw tight, his hands curled into fists in his lap. He had tried to maintain composure, but every glance at the twins made his pride flare into raw, unspoken frustration. Elena focused on the table's centerpiece, forcing herself to breathe. Camille whispered, "You have to survive this. Just stay calm, and don't let anyone see how much this is shaking you." But staying calm was impossible. The children were curious, and Maya's small voice carried across the quiet dinner. "Mommy, can we sit closer?" she asked, tugging at Elena's gown. Elena froze. The words were innocent, yet the weight of them pressed down like stone. She swallowed hard. I suppose," she murmured, sliding the chair slightly toward them. Marcus watched carefully, his eyes softening as he whispered, "Thank you." The proximity was unbearable. Every glance between them felt loaded with unspoken words. Every movement carried the weight of past love, unresolved anger, and a future that was suddenly uncertain. Richard observed from the corner, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. This forced closeness was exactly what he had hoped for. A subtle collision of past and present, a test of Elena's patience and pride. Daniel leaned in, his voice low and sharp. "I don't know how you plan to manage this. This changes everything." Elena's hands tightened around her napkin. I don't know yet. I just need to figure this out." The twins leaned forward, Miles pointing at the lavish centerpiece. "Mommy, can we help?" Elena's lips twitched, almost a smile, but she quickly masked it. Yes, you can help." For the first time since the spark of chaos had entered her life, Elena felt the fragile beginnings of connection. The proximity forced them to navigate each other's presence. Words would have to be exchanged, boundaries tested, and hearts reconsidered, whether she wanted it or not. As the guests laughed at a distant toast, Elena realized that the wedding she had planned for joy had become a crucible, an unavoidable, intimate space where past, present, and future collided. She couldn't escape it. She had to face it. And the twins, unaware of the storms their very existence had unleashed, had become the bridge she could no longer ignore. The reception hall buzzed with forced laughter and polite clinking of glasses, but beneath the surface, tempers simmered like a pot on the verge of boiling over. Elena moved through the crowd with calculated grace, each smile carefully measured, each nod precise, but inside her chest, anger and anxiety collided. Daniel, seated stiffly beside her, leaned in, his voice sharp and low. "You're letting him." He gestured subtly at Marcus and the twins. "Walk all over the day we planned. Do you even see how this looks?" Elena bit her lip, resisting the urge to snap. "I see exactly how it looks," she said evenly. "It looks like life isn't something you can schedule in perfect increments. It's messy." Daniel's eyes flared. "Messy? This isn't messy, Elena. This is my life too. Are you just going to pretend it doesn't matter that this ruins everything we were supposed to start?" Marcus, sensing the rising tension, knelt beside the twins, attempting to distract them. "Miles, Maya, "Do you want to see the cake?" he asked, forcing a smile. The children glanced up at him nervously but nodded, following his lead. The distraction only partially worked. Maya clutched her teddy bear tighter as she glanced toward her mother, sensing the undercurrent of hostility. Miles fiddled with his bow tie, his small hands trembling slightly. Richard, observing from the edge of the hall, allowed himself a subtle smirk. He had orchestrated this disruption, and now, watching his daughter navigate fury, confusion, and heartbreak simultaneously, he felt a rare thrill. "Ah," he murmured under his breath, "the perfect storm." Camille reached Elena's side, lowering her voice. "Ignore him for now. Focus on the children. They're scared, but they're not to BL." Elena exhaled slowly, her eyes flicking to the twins. She wanted to retreat, to push them away, to reassert control over her life. But the innocence in their wide eyes halted her. Every time she looked at them, a pang of love mixed with fear and resentment. "Mommy, can we play?" Miles asked, holding up a small toy car. Elena's shoulders slumped slightly, and a faint, hesitant smile touched her lips. "Yes, we can play," she said softly. But the tension between the adults refused to dissipate. Daniel's jaw remained clenched, his frustration simmering under the surface. Marcus's calm exterior masked the anxiety of knowing this was just the beginning of the chaos he had unleashed. And Richard thrived on the friction, each spark feeding his need for control and manipulation. The guests, though pretending to enjoy themselves, could feel the emotional storm raging in the center of the room. Whispers circulated, glances were exchanged, and a few discreetly moved to keep distance from the epicenter of the unfolding drama. Elena realized, with a mixture of dread and clarity, that the wedding she had envisioned, perfect, elegant, and controlled, had transformed into a proving ground. Every glance, every word, every small action now carried the weight of old wounds, fragile trust, and the unpredictable consequences of secrets long buried. The evening's polished veneer cracked further when the twins, oblivious to the underlying tensions, began giggling and chasing each other around the table. Elena watched them, her heart simultaneously swelling with warmth and tightening with anxiety. She knew the path forward would demand every ounce of patience, courage, and clarity she could summon. The rising tensions were more than just emotional, they were a test of love, pride, forgiveness, and the limits of control. And in that glittering ballroom, under the gaze of friends, family, and rivals alike, Elena felt the weight of every choice she would have to make in the days ahead. Later that evening, the ballroom's glittering lights seemed to soften, casting warm golden shadows across the room. Elena had retreated to a quiet corner near a grand window overlooking the city skyline. The twins sat beside her on a plush chaise, Miles fiddling nervously with the folds of his small tuxedo, and Maya clinging to her mother's hand. Camille perched nearby, sensing the need for comfort, but also for truth. "Elena," she said gently, "maybe it's time you tell them, and yourself." Elena's hands shook slightly. She hadn't even known about the twins until today. The revelation clawed at something deep inside her, a memory of nights spent alone, heartbroken, wondering if she had failed, if love had abandoned her. She closed her eyes briefly and let the words come, almost whispering, "When I was younger, I thought I had everything under control. I met someone I loved. Marcus. We were so sure, so certain we could survive anything. But I made mistakes. I left. I thought it was the only way to protect myself, to protect my career, to escape my father's shadow." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes moist, his voice low but steady. "Elena, it wasn't just you. We both made mistakes. But those mistakes created them." He gestured softly toward the twins, who looked at him with wide, trusting eyes. Elena's gaze fell to Miles first, then Maya. "I never knew. I never even imagined you existed," she admitted, her voice trembling. "All these years, I carried the emptiness of your absence without even knowing your names. And now you're here, and I—" Her words faltered. She reached out slowly, her fingers hovering over Miles's hand. He gripped her fingers tentatively, as if testing whether this warmth was real. Maya nestled closer to her mother, her small head resting against Elena's shoulder. Marcus's voice softened. "You didn't abandon them. Life just got in the way. But they've been waiting for you, and so have I. For the first time since the wedding began, Elena felt something shift. The anger, the shock, and the fear began to mix with a fragile thread of love. A sense of responsibility she had never anticipated now weighed on her heart, stronger than her pride, stronger than her fear. Camille squeezed Elena's shoulder. See? They need you. And maybe you need them too. Elena nodded, swallowing hard. I never imagined my life would include them. But now that they're here, I don't know how I could ever let them go again. The twins laughed softly, Miles showing her the small toy car, Maya clutching her teddy bear. Elena watched them, her heart a storm of regret and wonder. She realized that the past she had tried to bury, the life she had thought closed, had never truly left her. And now, for the first time, she understood that love, messy, complicated, and unexpected, could still find its way through even the deepest wounds. Richard, lurking at the edge of the room, caught a glimpse of the scene. His eyes narrowed, the faintest flash of irritation crossing his otherwise composed face. He hadn't counted on this tender moment. The past had revealed itself, and for once, the father's manipulations might not be enough to control the future. Elena took a deep breath, her arms tightening around the twins. The first layer of truth had been uncovered, and with it came both vulnerability and hope. She knew the road ahead would be complicated, but for the first time in years, she felt a spark of clarity. Love could survive even the cruelest disruptions. After the emotional reveal, Elena lingered in the quiet corner of the ballroom, letting the chaos of the celebration fade around her. The twins' small hands rested in hers, and for the first time, she allowed herself to simply feel their presence. "Mommy," Maya said softly, "can you show me how to make a bracelet like yours?" She held up a simple string of beads she had been fiddling with in her pocket. Elena's lips curved into a hesitant smile. "Of course," she replied, guiding Maya's tiny hands with her own. Miles watched intently, leaning closer, curiosity flickering in his eyes. The room outside buzzed with laughter, toasts, and champagne glasses clinking, but inside this small circle, time seemed to slow. Elena braided beads into a bracelet for Maya while Miles attempted to mimic her movements, fumbling but determined. "This is actually kind of fun," Elena admitted, her voice soft, almost a whisper meant only for the children. "I didn't know I was missing out on this." "Little things like this." Miles grinned up at her. "You've got to make a knot tight, Mommy, or it will fall off." Elena laughed quietly, the sound foreign yet liberating. It felt like a bridge being built, one bead and one knot at a time, connecting hearts that had been separated by years of silence and misunderstanding. Marcus watched silently nearby, a mixture of relief and cautious optimism on his face. "They like you," he said quietly. "They've always known you were their mother, even if they didn't know it before today." Elena glanced up at him, emotions warring in her chest. "I don't know if I deserve them," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You do," Marcus said firmly, kneeling beside her. "They don't care about the past. They just need you now." The small act of creating bracelets became a ritual of connection, a subtle but meaningful step toward trust. Elena could feel her heart softening, the walls she had built over years of betrayal and pride beginning to crack. She realized that while the wedding had been upended, something far more important had begun, the chance to nurture, protect, and love the children she never knew she had. For the first time that evening, Elena felt a genuine smile stretch across her face, unburdened by pride, fear, or anger. The twins giggled, their laughter echoing softly against the ballroom walls, a tender counterpoint to the chaos surrounding them. Even Daniel, watching from across the room, couldn't ignore the small miracle unfolding before him. He clenched his jaw, unsure whether to feel jealousy, awe, or resignation, but he had no choice but to witness the bond forming between Elena and the children. Richard, on the other hand, shifted in his seat uncomfortably. The father's control had always been absolute, but this moment, this fragile, unexpected bond, was something he could not manipulate. It was raw, honest, and entirely unplanned. Elena tightened her hold on the twins, feeling a warmth she hadn't realized she'd been missing. The path ahead was uncertain, messy, and full of challenges, but in this small corner of the world, love had found its foothold. And for the first time since the shocking revelation, Elena allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, some things were worth fighting for. The ballroom had barely begun to recover from the earlier shock, but new complications emerged with every passing moment. Elena tried to focus on the twins, on the fragile bond forming. Yet the pressures of her father, her fiancé, and the expectations of guests bore down on her relentlessly. Daniel's frustration simmered, and it finally boiled over during dinner. "Elena, this isn't just about feelings or children," he snapped, his voice cutting through polite chatter. "You've completely destabilized what we had. Do you realize how this looks to everyone? Your father, your company, me?" Elena clenched her fork, her knuckles white. "Do you think I planned this? Do you think I had any control over the past, or—" Richard interjected, leaning back with a smug smile. "Perhaps some lessons are best learned in real time. Life has a way of showing you who you really are, Elena." Across the table, a distant relative whispered to another, eyes wide. "Can you believe this? At a wedding? With children no one knew existed?" Meanwhile, the twins, unaware of the adult tension surrounding them, began tugging at Elena's gown again. Maya's soft voice pleaded, "Mommy, can we dance?" Elena's heart wrenched. She wanted to say yes, to escape the suffocating weight of judgment and expectation, but Daniel's glare froze her. "Not now," she whispered reluctantly, though she could feel the children's disappointment. Outside, the caterers scrambled as a minor accident caused a tray of champagne flutes to shatter. The clinking crash echoed through the hall, adding to the chaos, while whispers and curious glances intensified the scrutiny on Elena, Marcus, and the twins. Marcus's jaw tightened as he stepped forward, trying to shield the children from the mounting tension. "They're just kids," he said quietly. "They shouldn't be caught in this." But Richard saw the storm as an opportunity. "Perhaps," he said with a dangerous calm, "they need to see the consequences of their parents' decisions firsthand." Even Camille, trying her best to mediate, felt powerless. "Elena," she urged, "you can't control what everyone thinks. Focus on what matters, the twins and you." Elena nodded, but inside, panic fluttered. Every eye in the room seemed to weigh her, judge her, measure her worth not as a CEO, but as a mother, a woman, and a bride now thrown into an impossible situation. As the orchestra struck up another melody, Elena realized the day she had imagined, perfect, seamless, joyful, was gone. In its place was a battlefield of pride, love, secrecy, and expectations. Every smile she offered felt fragile, every movement calculated, every word fraught with potential disaster. The complications weren't just emotional. They were public, they were visible, and they threatened not just her wedding day, but her career, her relationships, and the delicate beginnings of the bond with her children. Elena took a deep breath, gripping the twins' hands tighter. No matter what else happened tonight, she knew she couldn't retreat entirely. She had to navigate this chaos, protect the children, and somehow reclaim a sense of control, even if the world around her refused to bend. The night had only just begun, and already every step forward felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. Later that evening, after the initial chaos of dinner had settled into an uneasy quiet, Elena found herself alone on the balcony overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The city lights twinkled like 1,000 tiny stars, yet inside her chest, a storm of emotions raged. The twins played quietly nearby, Miles stacking imaginary towers with his fingers, Maya hugging her teddy bear. Marcus stepped beside her, his expression heavy with years of unspoken truths. "Elena, there's something you should know," he began, his voice low and deliberate. "Before today, before the twins were born, there were complications. Things I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you or scare you." Elena's heart clenched. "Complications? What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, glancing at the children. "When Maya and Miles were born, the custody situation with their mother, my sister, Rachel, was complicated. I promised I would take responsibility for them fully, but there were threats, legal obstacles, even my own family doubting me. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to burden you, and I wasn't sure if you'd ever forgive me for leaving without explanation." Elena's mind whirled. She felt anger, shock, and something unfamiliar, a bitter sting of guilt for having assumed she had been abandoned. "You left, And I thought it was my fault, she whispered, voice trembling. I thought I wasn't enough. I thought. Marcus reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. It wasn't your fault, Elena. I was scared, and I made mistakes. But I've never stopped thinking about you. About us. And about them. Tears threatened to spill as Elena turned to the twins. Maya looked up at her, Miles holding her hand. In their eyes, she saw hope, love, and a silent plea. Don't push us away. Her father's shadow, which had loomed over her for so many years, seemed to fade slightly in that moment. She realized that the cruelty she had endured, the chaos of the wedding, the intrusion of the past, it had all led to this undeniable truth. Family was messy, painful, and unpredictable, but it was also real. Elena exhaled slowly, feeling a fragile clarity. The past didn't define her. Marcus's honesty, the twins' presence, and the unexpected confrontation with her father's manipulations were forcing her to see a larger picture. Love could exist despite betrayal, mistakes, and years of separation. She wrapped an arm around Maya and pulled Miles close. I want to try, she whispered, almost to herself. I want to be part of your lives. All of you. But it's going to take time and patience and understanding. Marcus nodded, a faint smile breaking through his tension. We'll take it one step at a time, he said. Together. The city lights below flickered in reflection of the fragile hope building inside her. The backstory that had been hidden so long no longer had the power to hurt her. It only illuminated the path forward, a path she wasn't willing to abandon. The twins, sensing the tension had lifted slightly, began to loosen up. Miles toddled forward with a crooked smile, holding a small toy car. Mommy, watch this, he exclaimed, rolling it along the balcony floor. Elena crouched down, laughter bubbling unexpectedly from her lips. Wow, that's some speed. You're going to need a helmet for that, she teased, ruffling his hair gently. Maya, not to be outdone, climbed onto Elena's lap, pressing her tiny face into her mother's chest. Mommy, can you tell me a story? One about when you were little? Elena's heart softened. She realized that this was the first moment she could share herself freely with her children. She took a deep breath. Well, when I was your age, I got into all sorts of trouble, she began, smiling at the memory. Once, I tried to bake a cake by myself, and let's just say the kitchen looked like a snowstorm of flour. The twins giggled, their laughter infectious. Marcus watched silently nearby, his shoulders loosening for the first time all evening. Elena's warmth and humor were disarming, bridging the gap years of separation had created. Mommy, Miles said, pointing at her hand. Can we do your bracelets again? Elena nodded, retrieving the beads from her purse. Absolutely. But this time, you two have to make one for me too, she added, slipping a string around her wrist. As they threaded beads together, Marcus knelt beside them, guiding tiny fingers and sharing quiet jokes. Looks like we've got a future team of jewel designers, he said, earning soft giggles from Maya. Even Daniel, watching from across the room, felt a pang of realization. He had assumed his love for Elena could only exist without interference from the past. But here, in the laughter and tenderness between mother and children, he saw something undeniable. Connections formed from honesty and vulnerability were stronger than polished perfection. Richard, observing from his usual corner, frowned slightly. He hadn't anticipated that Elena's genuine warmth could diffuse the chaos he had orchestrated. His smirk faltered. For the first time, his control felt irrelevant. Elena's smile lingered as she watched the twins create their colorful bracelets. You know, she said softly, I never realized how much I missed moments like this. Just simple time together. Miles looked up at her, eyes wide and serious. We missed you too, Mommy. Tears blurred her vision, but she laughed through them. I missed you both more than I can say. For the first time that evening, the tension melted entirely. Bonds were being built, not from ceremony, perfection, or appearances, but from laughter, stories, and shared small moments that carried enormous weight. The twins had become a bridge, connecting past mistakes to future hope, and Elena felt something she hadn't in years, a sense of belonging. The night sky glimmered over Manhattan, reflecting the fragile, growing light in her heart. She realized that while the wedding had been thrown into chaos, love had begun its quiet reclamation, one laugh, one story, and one bracelet at a time. Just as the warmth of the evening settled over Elena and the twins, a sharp, unexpected disruption pierced the fragile calm. The grand doors of the ballroom swung open, revealing a figure that made Elena's stomach twist. Victoria Hayes, Daniel's business partner, and the woman rumored to have been his secret confidant for months. Victoria's eyes scanned the room with thinly veiled malice before landing on Elena. "Well, isn't this touching?" she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "A perfect family reunion, right in the middle of a wedding. How heartwarming." Daniel's jaw tightened, his face draining of color. "Victoria, what are you?" "Oh, don't worry about me," she interrupted, stepping closer, her heels clicking ominously against the marble floor. "I'm just here to witness history. And maybe remind everyone that nothing is ever as perfect as it seems." The guests fell silent. Whispers ricocheted through the room, some craning to see what scandal had erupted. Richard's eyes gleamed, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. Even he seemed momentarily entertained by the unfolding chaos. Elena froze. Her heart pounded. She had survived shock, confrontation, and hidden truths, but this felt like a cruel twist of fate. Her carefully rebuilt connection with Marcus and the twins teetered dangerously on the edge. Maya clutched her teddy bear tightly, sensing the tension. "Mommy, what's happening?" Elena knelt, holding her close. "It's complicated, baby. Don't worry. Mommy's right here." But the reassurance felt hollow, even to herself. Victoria's smirk widened. "I hope he..." Daniel's face flushed crimson. I can explain." "Save it," Victoria interrupted sharply. "You've ruined plenty already." She turned to the crowd, lowering her voice just enough for the whispers to pick up. "I'd hate for the truth to get buried under all this celebration. But if people find out what's really been happening behind closed doors..." Gasps erupted. Elena felt a cold knot tighten in her chest. The twins looked up, confused and frightened. Marcus stepped forward instinctively, shielding them. "Enough," he said firmly, his voice resonating authority. "This isn't the time or place." Victoria laughed softly, a cruel, deliberate sound. "Oh, but it's perfect timing. Everyone's watching. Perfect backdrop for a little revelation." Richard leaned back, smirking, the faintest hint of approval flickering in his eyes. He had orchestrated chaos before, but this was unprecedented. The carefully constructed wedding had collapsed entirely. Elena's world, which had just begun to feel whole, now seemed to crumble under the weight of betrayal, secrets, and outside interference. Elena's hands trembled as she gripped the twins' shoulders. The warmth, the laughter, the fragile bonds she had built, everything threatened to shatter in a single, public moment. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not break in front of everyone, not yet. But deep down, she felt the sharp sting of despair, realizing that even amidst new love and hope, the world could still deliver heartbreak in its cruelest form. The wedding, meant to be the culmination of joy, had turned into the lowest point of her emotional journey. And Elena knew one thing with painful certainty. The night was far from over, and surviving what came next would demand every ounce of courage she had left. The ballroom, once shimmering with celebration, now felt suffocatingly heavy. Guests murmured in clusters, whispers blending with sharp glances and raised eyebrows. The laughter had vanished, replaced by a tense, brittle silence. Elena sat stiffly at her chair, the twins clinging to her sides, their small hands holding tightly to hers. Daniel stood apart, his face a mask of fury, humiliation, and confusion. "Elena," he said, voice tight with barely contained emotion, "how is this your responsibility? All of this chaos, what are we supposed to do now?" Elena exhaled slowly, her fingers brushing the tiny hands of Miles and Maya. "I don't know," she admitted quietly, her voice shaking. I thought I could handle everything, but it's more than I ever imagined." Marcus, standing protectively nearby, kept a hand lightly on her shoulder. "It's not about handling it alone," he said gently. "We deal with it together. That's all we can do." The twins, sensing the tension but not fully understanding, whispered to each other, clutching their toys. Their innocence contrasted sharply with the adults' turmoil, amplifying the weight of the room's heaviness. Richard, observing from the sidelines, maintained his composed facade, but inside, he felt a flicker of unease. He had orchestrated drama before, but seeing his daughter, his carefully constructed empire of appearances threatened by real emotions, made even him pause. Daniel's frustration boiled over. Elena, do you realize what this looks like? The wedding, the children, Elena's eyes met his, steely but weary. I realize exactly what it looks like. But this isn't about appearances anymore. It's about what's real. And right now, what's real is that I have 2 children who need me, a man I can't fully trust yet, and a father who thrives on chaos. A hush settled over the guests as they realized the depth of the emotional storm. The glittering hall now seemed oppressive, a reminder that celebrations could quickly become battlegrounds. Even the orchestra had gone silent, the notes lingering like echoes of tension. Camille leaned in, whispering urgently, Elena, you have to let them feel this too. The children, Marcus, you're not alone. Elena nodded slowly. She hugged the twins tighter, feeling the fragile thread of connection and trust begin to pulse again amidst the wreckage. Every guest, every whisper, every accusing glance was secondary. The fallout was real, painful, and public, but she knew the only thing that could anchor her now was the love she had begun to rebuild, no matter how shaken. Even as the night threatened to unravel completely, Elena felt a quiet determination stirring beneath the chaos. Hearts had been wounded, pride bruised, and trust tested, but she wasn't finished. Not yet. The fallout had left everyone reeling, but it had also made one thing clear. The real journey, the one that would test love, resilience, and family, was only just beginning. Just as the tension in the ballroom reached its peak, a soft voice broke through the charged atmosphere. Elena, called Mrs. Thompson, the longtime wedding planner and family friend who had quietly observed the chaos, stepping forward with calm authority. Elena looked up, her eyes tired and raw. Mrs. Thompson, she murmured. Don't let tonight define you, Mrs. Thompson said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. You've faced more than most people do in a lifetime, and yet here you are, holding on to what truly matters. The twins peeked out from behind Elena, curiosity in their wide eyes. Mrs. Thompson crouched down, smiling warmly. And what matters most is right here, she said, pointing to Miles and Maya. They need you, and you need them. Everything else, the chaos, the judgment, can wait. Elena's chest tightened. She had been trying to control everything, trying to shield the children and herself, but Mrs. Thompson's calm presence offered a lifeline she hadn't realized she needed. Marcus stepped closer, his hand lightly brushing hers. She's right, he said softly. Sometimes, it takes someone outside the storm to show you the way. Mrs. Thompson continued, her voice soothing yet firm. You don't have to fix everything tonight. Start small. Take it one step, one smile, one connection at a time. You've already begun. Look at how they've warmed to you. Elena's gaze fell on the twins. Miles held her hand tightly, his small smile breaking through the tension, while Maya clutched her teddy bear but leaned against her mother's side. Their trust, their vulnerability, reminded Elena of what truly mattered. A small, relieved smile tugged at her lips. Thank you, she whispered. I needed that. Mrs. Thompson nodded. And I'll be right here, guiding you if you need it. You're not alone, Elena. Not now, not ever. Even Daniel, standing across the room, seemed momentarily subdued, his anger tempered by the sight of Elena accepting support and focusing on the children. Richard, observing from a distance, felt a flicker of irritation. He hadn't accounted for allies outside of his control. Someone had intervened in his carefully orchestrated drama. Elena exhaled, letting the tension ease slightly from her shoulders. For the first time since the wedding had begun, she felt a spark of clarity. She didn't have to battle everything alone. Love, trust, and patience could guide her. She just needed to take the next step, and Mrs. Thompson's hand extended not only support, but a reminder that she could survive, even thrive, amidst chaos. The twins smiled up at her again, giggling softly. Elena's heart swelled, and she knew that even in the stormiest night, a single helping hand could light the way forward. After the chaos had temporarily subsided, Elena found a quiet corner in the hotel's grand lounge, away from the scrutinizing eyes of guests and the lingering tension of her father's presence. The twins played quietly on a nearby rug, Miles stacking blocks while Maya hummed softly to herself. Elena sank into a velvet chair, running her fingers through her hair, and let the night's events wash over her. She thought of the shock of discovering the twins, the betrayal from Daniel's partner, her father's manipulations, and the whirlwind of emotions she had endured. Her chest ached with the weight of everything she had tried to control. Marcus sat across from her, his eyes thoughtful. "It's a lot to process," he said gently. "But you've faced the storm head-on, and you've done it with grace." Elena shook her head, a faint laugh escaping. "Grace? I barely survived without collapsing. I've been angry, scared, confused, and yes, I've been selfish. I tried to protect myself from hurt for so long that I didn't even realize how much I was missing, how much I had lost." Marcus leaned forward, his voice steady but tender. "And yet, you didn't give up. You're here, with them. You're trying. That's what matters." Elena's gaze shifted to the twins. Maya's eyes sparkled with innocent trust, and Miles grinned, proud of a block tower he had built. In them, she saw a reflection of all she had ignored for years. The chance to be more than just a CEO, more than a daughter trying to prove herself. She could be a mother, a protector, a source of love. "I've been so focused on control," she whispered, "that I forgot to let life happen. I thought I could plan everything, anticipate every twist, but life doesn't work that way. Love, family, forgiveness, they can't be scheduled. They have to be felt, nurtured, and earned." Marcus nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Exactly. And you're starting to do that now. One step at a time." Richard's distant voice echoed in her memory, a reminder of all the manipulation and cruelty she had endured. Yet Elena realized something profound. She no longer had to let his control define her. She could choose how to respond, how to move forward, and how to embrace the love and family that had unexpectedly appeared. Elena inhaled deeply, feeling a subtle shift in her chest. A blend of hope, determination, and tentative courage. The night was far from over, but she understood now that reflection was not just about looking back at mistakes. It was about learning, accepting, and preparing to move forward with purpose. With one final glance at the twins, she whispered softly, "I will not let fear or anger dictate my life anymore. I will try. I will fight for us. And I will love them, no matter what." The twins giggled in response, Miles tumbling a block onto Maya's lap, eliciting a soft laugh from her. Elena smiled, feeling the first true sense of calm she had known all night. In the quiet of reflection, she realized that the hardest moments had also revealed the deepest truths, and for the first time, she felt ready to embrace them fully. The ballroom had emptied slightly, leaving pockets of lingering guests and scattered decorations. The twins were tucked safely in a quiet corner with Marcus, quietly playing with their toys, their laughter soft but comforting. Elena lingered near the grand staircase, her mind a whirlwind of fear, hope, and resolve. Daniel approached cautiously, his steps hesitant. The earlier rage in his eyes had softened, replaced with something more vulnerable, uncertainty and regret. "Elena," he said quietly, stopping a few feet away, I need to say something. I know I've caused a lot of pain, maybe too much, but I can't walk away without trying to make this right." Elena's hands trembled slightly. She could feel the weight of years of heartbreak and disappointment pressing down, but there was also the flicker of possibility. The chance for understanding, forgiveness, or at least clarity. "I've tried to control everything," she admitted, her voice low. "And I've failed. I've failed myself and everyone I care about. But this isn't just about me anymore. It's about the children. It's about love, honesty, and choices. And right now, I have to decide what kind of life I want to lead. With them, with Marcus, with anyone who truly deserves to be here." Daniel swallowed hard. "I know I made mistakes, Elena. I know I hurt you. But I want to try. I want to make amends. I want to be part of their lives, if you'll let me." Elena's eyes softened, but caution lingered. The twins had begun to notice, watching the exchange with wide eyes. Miles clutched Maya's hand nervously, sensing the tension between the adults. Marcus, standing nearby, offered a subtle nod, giving her the space to make her choice without interference. He had been patient, steadfast, and protective, but he trusted Elena to navigate this critical moment herself. Elena exhaled, letting a long-held tension leave her body. "It's not easy," she said softly, voice breaking slightly. "It's not about forgiving overnight or pretending the past didn't hurt. But I believe people can change. And if you're willing to try, truly try, for them, maybe we can find a way." Daniel's eyes glimmered with emotion, a mixture of hope and relief. "I am willing," he said firmly. "I promise." Elena took a tentative step forward, then another, closing the distance. "Then we take it slowly," she whispered, "one step at a time. For them. For us. For the future we haven't written yet." The twins' faces lit up. Maya beamed. "Mommy, can we all play together now?" Miles nodded enthusiastically, and Elena felt her heart swell. Marcus exhaled quietly, a faint smile forming. Even amidst uncertainty, the choice had been made. Connection had been extended. Forgiveness and trust would take time, but the first step toward healing had been taken. Richard, from across the room, watched in silence, realizing his manipulations could no longer dictate the outcomes. Elena had chosen, not for him, not for the wedding, but for love and family. And in that choice, she had reclaimed her power. The ballroom, though still carrying the echoes of chaos, began to feel lighter. Elena guided the twins toward the center of the room, where a small circle of familiar friends had gathered, offering smiles and quiet encouragement. Miles clutched her hand, and Maya held tightly to her teddy bear, their trust and laughter signaling the first signs of healing. Marcus joined them, kneeling beside the children. "Ready for a little fun?" he asked, his voice warm. "Let's make this a night you'll actually remember, one you can laugh about later." Elena laughed softly, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She handed Miles a napkin to craft into a paper plane, while Maya carefully folded hers into a tiny heart. The children's giggles rang out, fragile but steady, a stark contrast to the tension that had dominated the evening. Daniel hesitated, watching them, and then stepped forward cautiously. "Mind if I join?" he asked, his voice tentative but sincere. Elena glanced at him, gauging his intentions, and nodded. He leaned down, showing the twins how to fold their planes more carefully, and for the first time that evening, they shared a moment of genuine connection. The small circle of friends and family observed silently, sensing the shift in energy. Whispers of "it's happening," and "they're finally together," moved through the room like a ripple. Even Richard, from his distant vantage point, furrowed his brow. The tension he had orchestrated was losing its grip. Elena's strength, combined with her willingness to forgive and embrace love, had begun to reclaim the night. Elena watched Marcus, Daniel, and the twins play together, her chest swelling with cautious optimism. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't seamless. But the fragile bonds of family, trust, and hope were beginning to knit themselves together, one laugh, one gesture, one shared moment at a time. She leaned back, exhaling deeply. For the first time since the wedding began, she felt a warmth spread through her heart. Despite the betrayals, the heartbreak, and the chaos, she could see a path forward, a future where love could triumph, where family could heal, and where she could finally let herself hope again. The music softly swelled in the background, the lights twinkling over the city skyline, reflecting the renewed possibility of connection and happiness. The night had been stormy, but the first rays of reconciliation and hope had begun to shine through. Just as the fragile sense of calm and joy began to settle over the ballroom, a new disruption struck. The hotel manager approached nervously, whispering urgently to Richard before the older man's eyes darted toward Elena and the twins. "Elena," Richard said, his voice deceptively calm. "It seems we have one more complication." Elena's stomach tightened. "What now?" she demanded, her voice low but sharp. Across the room, the music faltered as an unexpected interruption emerged. A prominent business rival of Elena's company had arrived unannounced, flanked by lawyers and reporters, announcing an urgent issue that threatened to go public, an accusation questioning her leadership and integrity. The timing could not have been more destructive. Daniel's face drained of color. This is insane. Tonight? Why tonight?" Elena felt a surge of panic, but suppressed it. Her father's smirk widened ever so slightly, as if he had orchestrated this too, though she suspected this chaos was partly independent of him. Marcus stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on her arm. "We've handled worse. Together, We can handle this too. The rival stepped forward, speaking in clipped, accusatory tones, demanding immediate accountability. Guests murmured, some whispering judgmentally, others watching the unfolding drama with wide-eyed fascination. Elena's chest pounded, but she remembered Mrs. Thompson's advice: focus on what matters. She took a deep breath, glanced at the twins, and felt the surge of love and responsibility anchor her. The children's trusting eyes reminded her that she could not falter, not now, not ever. Daniel, stepping beside her, nodded silently. He had chosen to face the challenge with her, not against her, and Marcus's protective presence gave her courage. Together, they could confront this obstacle. Elena squared her shoulders, lifting her chin. "This doesn't define me," she said firmly, her voice echoing through the hall. "We will handle it. Calmly, honestly, and together." The rivals and lawyers were momentarily stunned by her composure. The guests sensed a shift, control, clarity, and determination radiating from Elena. Even Richard's smirk faltered, recognizing that his daughter's resilience had outgrown his manipulations. For the first time that night, Elena felt not fear, but power. The power to face chaos without surrendering her values, her family, or her heart. The final obstacle loomed large, but she had allies, love, and courage on her side. And for the first time, she believed they could emerge not only unbroken, but triumphant. The ballroom, once a stage for chaos and heartbreak, now glowed with quiet celebration. The tension that had gripped the room all evening had transformed into smiles, laughter, and a tentative peace. Elena held the twins close, feeling the warmth of their trust and love seep into her very soul. Marcus stood beside her, a reassuring presence, while Daniel, humbled and sincere, knelt to show the twins a small magic trick, earning their delighted giggles. The walls of pride, anger, and fear that had defined the night were dissolving into genuine connection. Richard watched silently from his chair, realizing that control and manipulation had no power over the bonds formed from honesty and love. He finally understood that his daughter's strength, compassion, and resilience were forces he could never dominate. Elena's heart swelled as she looked at the small circle of family and friends surrounding her. What had begun as a chaotic, nearly disastrous night had become a testament to perseverance, courage, and the power of love. She understood now that life wasn't about perfection. It was about embracing the people and moments that mattered most, even when the world seemed intent on testing you. The twins danced around her, laughter echoing through the hall, while Daniel and Marcus shared a quiet nod of understanding. Elena smiled, realizing she had reclaimed her life, her family, and her happiness. The wedding, though imperfect, had become a beginning, not an ending. As the city lights glittered outside the windows, Elena whispered softly to the children, "We're together now, and we'll face everything as a family." Maya hugged her tightly, Miles beamed up, and in that moment, all the trials, betrayals, and chaos melted into triumph. Hope, love, and reconciliation had won the night. The arcs of heartbreak, anger, and uncertainty had completed their journey, leaving behind a story of victory, family, and a mother finally embracing the life she had fought so hard to reclaim. My beautiful family, life will often throw chaos, betrayal, and unexpected challenges in our path, sometimes at the moments we least expect. What truly matters is how we respond, with courage, honesty, and an open heart. Love, trust, and family cannot be controlled, planned, or perfected. They must be nurtured, even through heartbreak and uncertainty. When we choose patience, forgiveness, and connection over pride and fear, we discover strength we didn't know we had, and the people who truly belong in our lives reveal themselves. What would you have done if you were in Elena's shoes? Would you forgive, take a step back, or fight for your family no matter the chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to see what you would do.
Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this one, then you'll absolutely love the next. It's even crazier and more captivating than you can imagine. So go ahead and click the video showing right here on your screen, and I'll see you in the next story.